Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome everyone. Let me share my screen. There we go. Welcome to our Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform webinar on a very interesting topic today. We are going to discuss entrepreneurial universities, spin-offs, and technology transfer. So we are going to be 90 minutes together, and it's going to be a very interesting event. So welcome from my side. I'm one of the thematic experts for Smarter Europe at the Policy Learning Platform. And this afternoon, I'm co-moderating this webinar with Marc. How are you, Marc, this afternoon?
I'm well, thank you, Arno. Good afternoon, everyone. Looking forward to the speakers and also your questions later. So I'll be joining you throughout this session.
Thanks, Marc. And we also have Lotte with us. Good to have you with us, Lotte. And please, participants, we want to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So at any point, you can use the chat, send us some questions to us and also to our speakers. So let us introduce our speakers today. We are very lucky because we have 4 excellent speakers today with us. And we are going to look at the latest policy insights on research valorisation with Arno. How are you, Arno, this afternoon?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Amsterdam, sunny Amsterdam for a change. So I have to mention that it's a rare event these days. But good afternoon. Looking forward to today's session. Excellent.
Great to hear. Good to have you with us. We have Sébastien from the University of Bern, and we are going to look at how to set up an innovation office within a university. How are you, Sébastien, this afternoon?
Bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. Very well, thank you. Sunny as well here in Bern, so very happy about that too.
Excellent. Also, we have Triinu from the University of Tartu, and we are going to look at the spin-off program. Is it sunny in Tartu as well?
Yes, hi guys, I'm happy to be here with you also from the sunny Tartu.
Excellent, excellent. So last but not least, we have Cristina with us, and we are going to look at latest insights from the Interreg Europe project VIADUCT and looking at different technology transfer offices, good practices. Cristina, is it sunny in Zaragoza? I guess it is.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Also sunny in Zaragoza. I'm happy to be here and hope to have a good time together discussing on entrepreneurial universities.
Excellent. So it's 100% success rate. Everywhere is sunny, so that's good. Before moving on to presentation, a few words about Interreg Europe. So Interreg Europe is a very unique program that covers all cohesion priorities, all European regions, all European countries. We also have Switzerland, so that's why you're here, Sébastien, and Norway, and some new countries that joined the program. We have Ukraine, Moldova, all the Balkan countries, and they can also participate to projects, but also take advantage of our policy learning platform services as well. Interreg Europe is all about capacity building to improve regional development policies. And how do we do that? It's through the exchange of experience and is mostly dedicated to policymakers, local and regional policymakers. 2 main actions. We have the projects for regions to exchange knowledge and practices on specific policy issues. We have the third call that is going to open next week and is going to close on the 7th of June. Very important. And the second action is a policy learning platform. And the policy learning platform is about capitalizing all the knowledge from all the project and diffusing it to as many policymakers from Europe as possible. Policy learning platform in a nutshell, what do we do? So we provide access to knowledge through policy briefs, through stories, through news. We provide access to people through webinars, workshops, and so on. And we provide also access to tailored expertise. And one of our services, the most relevant services for all policymakers is the peer review. And Marc, we have conducted a very interesting peer review in the Azores, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks, Arno. Yeah, and it's good to see some of the people who attended our peer review from the Azores joining us online today. I think I had a quick look at the countries we cover, from Ukraine to the Azores. I think the full breadth of Europe. And the peer reviews are one of our, what we call our gold standard services, because it's really 2 days of dedicated research and analysis into a problem or a challenge that you face in your region. And the policy learning platform brings 5 to 6 experts to help understand the challenge you face and the solutions they may have found from their own experience. So in the Azores, you know, we had a very good participation. I think almost 50 people in the room at one stage, for stakeholders, university deans and SMEs. And it's a very open discussion. I'm not saying Arno and I had to separate people, but it's a lively discussion in which challenges are put out on the table and hopefully solutions. And we are very lucky to have colleagues from Arno joining us also there. So through peer reviews, we try and create long-term relationships between the partners, between the participants, and they often lead to follow-up projects. So you can see from this map, you know, it increases daily. You know, we were at 72 and there are another 10 in the pipeline. So if you're interested in following up the issues that we're going to discuss today, the peer review can be a good way of tackling it. If you just want to dip into the theme, a matchmaking session, as opposed to 2 days, matchmaking will last you 2 hours. Similar process of working with us to find some experts to lay out some of the challenges and maybe solutions that exist elsewhere. So you can find the links and how to apply by following the little link at the bottom of this slide.
Thanks, Marc. And we have not done a peer review yet in Switzerland. So Sébastien, you can apply for one. That would be great. All right. And the policy learning platform can help you in finding better policies for making universities more entrepreneurial. We have many good practices on the topic. We will hear from this Interreg Europe project VIADUCT, and they will discuss different good practices. We have also written 2 very relevant policy briefs on this topic. One is on university-industry collaboration, and one that was published 2 days ago is on research valorisation. And in this policy brief on research valorisation, we also have contributions from the University of Zaragoza and also from the University Industry Innovation Network from Balzan. So please have a look on these policy briefs, and I think Lotte will share the links in the chat. And Marc just mentioned the peer review in the SOS. You can see a photo of us. We look all very happy to be there, and it was a great event. You can see the different stakeholders there and the host and the peers. All right, a little bit about the topic of today. We are talking about entrepreneurial universities and the 3rd mission. So universities aim to develop, of course, the human capital. So education is the first mission. They also aim to produce new knowledge and to do research. This is the 2nd mission. But universities are now increasingly encouraged to embrace this 3rd mission, which involves actively engaging in regional development and contributing to society. So the third mission has a very broad spectrum of actions. It ranges from promoting social equity, community engagement, community development, to fostering university industry collaboration. And on this topic of university industry collaboration, there are many activities that can be regrouped into 4 different dimensions that university and policies can promote. They can promote on education, having like this type of curriculum co-design, co-delivery, having this mobility of students for them to do internship in companies, having these dual education programs where it's part academic, part practical, also executive education. Regarding research, they can be a joint R&D program. They can be consulting to business. There is also this idea of mobility of staff from academia to business. Regarding research valorization, we can distinguish between the commercialization of research results that can be done through licensing or patenting, to promoting spin-offs from research or startups from student entrepreneurship. And also this idea of management, where universities can also participate in governance. We see, for instance, university increasingly participating in the S3 process when they are co-leaders of S3 priorities. There is this idea of shared resources and industry supporters. So we want to ask you, participants, to tell us a little bit about what type of activities from all the activities that we just presented you have in your region. So what type of university industry collaboration activities do you promote in your region? And here you can see all the list of different activities and tell us a little bit about it so we can know more about what you do in your regions. What do you think, Marc? What type of activities are very relevant?
I was just writing down, Arno, the importance of engaging with companies. So the first one, and this is before I looked at them. So I think, well, we've got some answers. Someone agrees with me.
Yes.
And I think the Commission also funds a lot of issues on mobility. That's through the Erasmus program, which is the most obvious. But increasingly, there are programs funded under Horizon Europe, where vouchers are given for Europeans to go and work in the US, for example. I'll share a link later on today. It's a project called NGI Enrichers, where the EC funds this mobility for a young researcher to go into a US laboratory or university. I think the international mobility on one of these points is quite interesting, not only academic to business, but also academic to academic in another country, especially in places like the US, which are known for their excellent return on investment for research and innovation.
Yeah, it's quite interesting responses as well from participants. We see academic entrepreneurship, student entrepreneurship is quite high. So it's going to be the topic of our webinar, looking at spin-offs at the University of Tartu, but also at the University of Bern. They're doing a lot regarding student entrepreneurship. Joint R&D is quite high. So we see from participants, their universities are doing many different types of activities, right? 74% student entrepreneurship. Consulting to business is quite high. Commercialization of research results that we are going to see with Cristina at the University of Zaragoza. Okay, so it's great. Thanks so much, participants, for sharing. So we can see here the list. Okay, and what's the list? Curriculum co-design is not, okay, dual education. So this education part is the least important, it seems. All right, student entrepreneurship, big topic. Okay, cool. So we move to presentation. Thanks, participants, for for participating to the Slido. We move on to our first presentations. Arno, the floor is yours, and you have 8 minutes. And please, participants, you can ask questions to Arno in the chat.
Wow, 8 minutes for such a big topic. Thank you very much, first of all, for Arno and Marc for having us here today. I like the setting the stage, so that's going to help me stick to my 8 minutes, because that was nice to provide a bit of a holistic picture of university industry engagement. So the way I look at it is, when we talk about entrepreneurial universities, I know the topic of today, spin-offs and research valorization, but I'm going to challenge it a little bit at the start, because to me the bigger topic, of course, is about talent and innovation. Spin-offs and research valorization or commercialization are just vehicles to get that innovation out of the university, just like talent. But they're not, of course, the end goal on its own. It is something that maybe is easier, is more tangible, and something we can measure. And definitely I'll talk about that. But maybe just 2 steps back. First, we've just heard from the first and second mission of universities, right? Education, research, and then adding on to that the third mission. And I think that's where partly our problems start, seeing the entrepreneurship, innovation, external engagement, seeing it as an additional mission of the institution rather than something that should run across. Because what it does, it sometimes then also makes us focus on what we can extract directly from those third mission activities, from technology transfer. That's how it started out after the Bayh-Dole Act in the US in the 80s. And that trend has blown over to Europe. That's what we started to focus on. So we started to see external engagement and what we see as the entrepreneurial university. A lot of people forget it's about entrepreneurial and not just about entrepreneurship. We started to see it as a method to increase external income, which actually it's not. The majority of technology transfer offices across the globe, they make an operational loss. If you look at just their activities in terms of the return on investments of their activities, which I actually don't see a problem. I don't have a problem with that per se, but I just want to take away this narrative of it's going to generate a ton of money for the university and going to make everyone rich. It's also not just about commercialization and technology transfer as being the standard activity or just about student startups. And I'd like to quote Alan Gibb, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but was an excellent researcher on the Entrepreneurial University from an academic perspective and on the context of the Entrepreneurial University. And I've taken the liberty to paraphrase some of his definitions and his quotes in his papers and other publications. So towards him, it's about designing the university to empower students, academics, and staff to demonstrate, a term out of the UK often used there, enterprise, innovation, and creativity. The way that's being demonstrated, we'll leave that for now. Directed to enhance learning, knowledge production, and exchange in a highly complex and changing societal environment, and dedicated to create public value via processes of open engagement. And public value doesn't exclude economic value or economic impact. It actually includes economic impact, whereas the other one does exclude the other. Then maybe just about the words valorization, because we saw that in today's title. So valorization is not just about commercialization or academic entrepreneurship. It's a little bit broader than that. It's in the end, it's about creating value from knowledge, can be societal value, can be other types of value. And it's about creating making a wider contribution to society, and contributing to the development of a society just as well. So now, having started with that and hopefully using that a little bit to set the scene, I want to get back to the different pathways for valorization and use my remaining time for that. And provide you with a few statistics and maybe with a few potential suggestions for you to apply either in your region or your own institution if you are representing either industry or university. First of all, statistics. 1% of universities in the United States account for over 70% of the total licensing income, leaving 99% of the universities. The US, depending on which criteria you use, they have around about 4,000 universities or higher education institutions. So that leaves 99% of them, the vast majority, to battle over the remaining 30% of total licensing income. My message here for you is it's not just about licensing. That's not the only pathway. There's so many different pathways that you can take when we talk about valorization. Startup and spin-off creation, as you will see in my matrix at the bottom right of this slide, is just one of them. But so is curriculum design and delivery, presentations, volunteering, social entrepreneurship, academic mobility, policymaking, joint research and development, sharing our facilities and resources, maybe putting things into real brick and mortar kind of relationships, having shared laboratory spaces. or as is the case for many universities across the world, they don't utilize their infrastructure up to 100%. For the majority of universities, it's between 85 to 90% of the infrastructure being utilized, leaving unutilized infrastructure, expensive machinery sitting around that you can share externally. That is another way to valorize knowledge, just as entrepreneurship education, student mobility, and many other types that can create intangible up to tangible impact, and of course relating from the educational activities towards research activities. So licensing, not the only pathway. Universities and their surrounding ecosystems are often disconnected. We'd often see a disconnect between what's going on in the university itself when it comes to their entrepreneurial activities and what's going on in the surrounding surrounding ecosystem, and the lack of that pathway. So ideally, the pathway for entrepreneurship out of a university would look something like this, right? If we simplify it a little bit. So we got our entrepreneurial thinking and acting. And by the way, I'm not just talking about students, just as well as academics. We want to make them more entrepreneurial, more innovative in their thinking and acting and in their behavior. It's the first stage, mindset, right? Then we want to get them into maybe creating some sort of a business idea, a concept, and we get them into a pre-incubation program before those that are, and this is of course also a natural selection process, before those that are left and maybe entering an incubation program, an accelerator, and then maybe a scale-up growth program, moving their location often away from, we were just talking about a few locations within Europe, and a lot of them then go to the US, maybe because they need access to venture capital or other types of funding or talent, or have other requirements. The bottom left part, the dark blue ones, those are mostly internal within a university, with the green ones or the teal ones on the top right are mostly what we find in an external ecosystem. And ideally, we would see something like this, like a pathway developing from basic entrepreneurial knowledge towards expert, and from a mindset kind of approach towards a scale-up of an entity, of often a commercial entity. How often we, however, see when we go to visit universities and look at their entrepreneurial ecosystem, we see something like this. Basically, we see utter chaos, a lot of things overlapping, and a lack of actually integration of these different steps that a university can take. Sometimes a university absorbing an external stakeholder's role, let's say the acceleration program, and taking that over, can also be to the lack of maybe a regional development agency or regional policies that are proactively steering these entrepreneurial activities. So it's not necessarily about allocating blame or fault, but it's just about starting this conversation within your region. I challenge all of you to really take up that activity of speak to stakeholders within your region and really try to understand, how do we connect together? And how can we utilize each other's strengths to build that pathway for our students and academics and other types of commercial entities out of our university? And now, the only last thing I just wanted to touch upon is commercialization of research is not just, actually two last things, and I'll be quick, is not just a standardized pathway. So what we often see is we see the pathway of research, invention, going to industry, and then hoping for market entrance when it comes to a traditional type of pathway. Whereas what we'd like to see is research and industry collaborating together to create that invention for market entrance. Because often when it comes to invention towards industry, bridging technology readiness level 3 to 6, and making it ready for market, that's often where the disconnect is. So my message here is for you to engage with industry early on before you actually create the invention. And then lastly, what we need in order to do that, and this comes out of one of our research projects, and of course is also well documented in European policies, is about spanning the organizational boundaries and having the individuals to do that. What we call boundary spanning champions, or if you'd like not to be a champion, boundary spanning agents, those that are initiating, coordinating, and supporting engagement between university, industry, government, and society. They need a particular set of skill sets. We see different sets of competencies around here, 7 different areas of competencies: strategy, vision, collaboration, negotiation, entrepreneurial thinking and acting, partner understanding, etc. And they need to be able to apply that, because they are chameleons when you ask me. They need to adjust their language when they're talking to educators, to business, to students, and societal stakeholders. On the one hand, talking about impact, whereas towards someone else talking about talent acquisition or business models, or talking about employability and the societal impact that research can have. They need to understand that engagement is a people's game. Building relationships and transactions will come, and they will take care of themselves. And applying a relationship management approach, and coming back to that first, second, and third mission kind of analogy, actually, that's also where we often go wrong with our KPIs. We want academics to undertake external engagement, but actually we're still measuring them when it comes to students, maybe master thesis supervised, or we measure them in terms of publications. And we don't have any KPIs, really strong KPIs and well-advocated ones around engagement. And then if we do, we tend to focus on transactions rather than relationship value or lifetime value of our customers. If you don't understand the lifetime value, then what you get is you get short-term results, but you don't actually build that relationship out. And then lastly, getting started is the hardest step. We need to provide the right support for our academics in order to engage externally or undertake valorization types of activities. Just a few examples here is in terms of like an introductionary mechanism. One great thing that came out of, I think it was Uppsala, Sweden, and I hope I'm referencing the right university here, is AIM Day, which is a day put together, a networking day for academics to engage with external stakeholders, challenges put forward by industry, and then matching them with the right academics internally. And then the last one I just want to touch on is the providing opportunities for understanding the partner's perspective. This was a great example of perspective exchange that came out of Germany. What was done there was it was providing academics and industry stakeholders with the opportunity to shadow each other for a few days and just to understand what is going on in their lives and what is it that they're challenged with in their work environment. Now, as I said, I was thrown a hard challenge to talk about this for only 8 minutes. I've used 10, my apologies. But I'll leave you with this. If you want to continue this conversation, come to our conference the 27th to 29th of May in Madrid, about shaping the future of talent and innovation. But if anything else, just visit uin.org. We have a large library, public, freely available to anyone, with podcasts, articles, and other information exactly around this topic. We're all very enthusiastic about it, always open to have further conversations. And I look forward to the other presentations from my colleagues and, of course, the discussion afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Arno. That was really, really interesting. I really like the matrix that you presented with all the different activities. And you also presented one important topic. You mentioned that 1% of universities, they produce 70% of the licensing income. And I was, wondering, should more like regional universities who are not the type of elite university prioritize entrepreneurship rather than licensing or patenting? What do you think? Is there like the right balance for more universities?
Yeah, no, thank you. Very good question. From my perspective, this all comes down to an internal analysis to what we do as an institution, what it is that we're good at. It really connects really well with the smart specialization strategies of the European Commission as well, in terms of what does our region need? And ask yourself, what is the role of our organization within our ecosystem? So if you are the university, if you are MIT, then maybe your role is to do disruptive research and really life-changing inventions that impact the world globally. Whereas if you are I'm just going to name one, okay? And it's not about them. Fachhochschule Bielefeld, let's say, or you are the University of Applied Sciences somewhere in Lappeenranta, just because we have a Finnish colleague on the call. So if you're more remote and you're a University of Applied Sciences, maybe you're smaller, and maybe you have industry stakeholders in your region that really need a particular type of talent, or they have particular research needs. Cater to their needs, cater your education and your research more towards their needs, because that's maybe the role that your institution plays. And if that then means you focus more on if you focus more on, as you said, entrepreneurship or licensing, to me, those words, they are the vehicle of what you look, they're the vehicle of achieving impact. And it doesn't really matter what your vehicle is, but you need to adjust your activities and the vehicles to your regional context and to your institutional context. I think that's the most important thing, is to start with that and not just mirror what someone else has done. And sorry, I know this is going to become a windy answer, but then just the last thing, because I love this. There was a geographical expert on Innovation District who used to work at the Brookings Institute, and who told me this story about how he was invited when Silicon Valley became really big. He was invited to go to all these regions in Europe that all wanted to create Silicon Valley. And his answer then often was, well, okay, so they got a McDonald's, they got a road, they got traffic lights. So yeah, build it and you'll create that ecosystem. And of course, it was a bit of a joke because in the end, you can't replicate what someone else has done somewhere else. There's plenty of regions who have attempted to do that. They've created their own Silicon Valley, but it's not Silicon Valley. It's your own valley, or it's your own thing. So it's really about staying close to what your regional strengths and assets are, and what you can do within that region, rather than just replicating what another institution has done, because that's never going to work.
Thanks, Arno, for your answer. Marc, any questions from you?
First, thanks again, Arnaud. There are some questions you can perhaps answer in the chat after. I won't try and repeat them. I was on the same thinking as Arnaud. A lot of the people who participate in Interreg Europe are looking at ways of connecting and, let's say, creating more value for their regional ecosystems. And we often see a mismatch between the research excellence and the business ecosystem. And so, the choices that have to be made, do we invest in some form of, new technology platform that fits with the businesses, or do we change our research? Are there some insights to the way in which the mismatch can be, the gap can be closed?
Sorry, Marc, can you clarify to make sure that I understood the question? Which mismatch specifically? The mismatch between the research excellence in a region's university infrastructure and the business ecosystem within that region. So the mismatch between trying to create those links between the businesses and the researchers, but they're actually working on two different themes or two different domains. Domains as in industry sectors, or
exactly, yeah.
Yep. I mean, if you ask me, it's all about bringing the right industry to the region, and I would be surprised if there is a mismatch. Maybe the research that the university is doing is maybe not that excellent after all, because if the research will be excellent, then it should trigger the right stakeholders around it. And at least this is something that we often see with research intensive, as I like to call them, research intensive universities that are really strong in a particular field. They're able to attract the right industry stakeholders to their region. I'm based in Amsterdam, but it's more coincidental than anything else, not for any other purpose. But we have here on the Science Park in Amsterdam, as an example, the university is really strong on data science. And even while ASML, the Netherlands, small country, but even while ASML is based in Eindhoven, it was one of the companies that came out of Philips. And they have a strong connection to the TU Eindhoven. They also deliberately built a research infrastructure here on campus to be closer to, let's say, the action when it comes to research excellence. Qualcomm has done the same thing around about a decade ago, wanting to be really close to the data science activities. So I think if there is a mismatch, that is something that can be overcome either by attracting the right stakeholders to your region. And that's where the boundary spanning agents actually come in as advocates of their region and advocating that excellent research that is taking place to bring another word to throw in there, to bring the whales to the region. Because if you get a whale, if you get an ASML, or you get an NVIDIA, or you get a Pfizer, or you get one of those types of entities to come to your region, around that whale, just like with a whale, there's all these little fish that sit around that whale that come with it, this entire innovation supply chain that comes into that region. And I think that's how you build an innovation ecosystem in the end. You need these types of entities to be present.
All right.
Thanks for those
Thanks
insights.
so much. Yes, thanks so much, Arno. Thanks, Marc, for your question. Let's move on to our next presentation. Sébastien, we move to University of Bern, where you have set up this innovation office. So you have 8 minutes to tell us more about it.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope you hear me well. And super interesting presentation by Arno. Really resonates on many points. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to present briefly the University of Bern's Innovation Office. We are a startup ourselves in a way. We started 2.5 years ago. Maybe just to give you some context on the Okay, on the university, so we are comprehensive research university, 8 faculties, around 25,000 people, so about 20,000 students, 7,000 employees. We have so 8 faculties, as I said, except engineering. In terms of thematic focus, these are the strategic focuses of the university. As you can see, pretty broad. I have underlined health and medicine, and this is for a reason, because especially in the area of innovation promotion, this is really, I think, where we have currently the most projects coming. And this is also partly because the University of Bern is very closely associated with the research hospital, the Inselspital, and together they have the largest medical faculty in Switzerland. And this is really a campus where you see a lot of innovation happening, where you see a lot of collaboration between academic scientists and clinicians, and so working very closely to you know, the everyday problems in the medical field. Researchers then will work on solutions, and you have institutes such as the Arnault for biomedical engineering research, where they actually work in research groups composed of researchers, engineers, as well as clinicians, and that really then produces quite a lot of innovation and spin-offs coming out of it. Since a couple of years, we also have the SITM-ENSEL, the Swiss Institute for Translational and Entrepreneurial Medicine, a place that brings together, again, academics, researchers, as well as bigger companies such as CSL Behring and other medtech startups. So there's a big push also politically to really make Bern a leading hub in medtech and biotech, and this is where we see a lot of stuff happening. So why does it need an innovation office on top of that? So 2.5 years ago, the University of Bern Executive Board has decided to start this innovation office with the mission to support innovation entrepreneurship across the entire university. So not just medicine, but also in other fields. And we have come up with this, our own, if you want, sort of vision, which is to create a thriving innovation ecosystem that shapes our society of tomorrow. So the idea is really to create ecosystem on the entire campus for all sorts of discipline. And so what are our activity areas? So there are basically 3 areas. We want to inspire, we want to empower our researchers, and we want to be engaged. And I think something that Arno mentioned before, I think something that is really important. So what does that exactly mean? So inspire, I think our mission there is really to inspire students, academics, as well as physicians to go entrepreneurial, to think about the impact that their research could have for the economy, for society. It's about bringing people together, about creating platforms for exchange. It's also about having a little bit of fun. So it's not just about creating info sessions, but you have to get people engaged. And so, for example, one format that we created is the Founders Forum, where we bring together researchers that we know personally together who want to create a spin-off or who are interested in entrepreneurship, interested in innovation. And we bring them together with alumni who have already created their spin-off or other people in the ecosystem that are supporting those kind of ventures, and really create a place where we create this bridge between the local ecosystem and the, if you want, academic campus. And our motto is making ideas fly. And so just as a fun activity, as you see here, we actually made them put down their idea on a piece of paper and make it fly. So it's about creating sort of those moments where people then can engage with each other. But our core focus, I would say, of our activities is really about empowering researchers. And so far we have focused on academics. And so one part of it is really about educating about entrepreneurship, about innovation, what it actually means. It seems maybe pretty obvious to you, but very often there are some wrong associations made with those terms, especially with entrepreneurship. Especially academics sometimes seem a little bit skeptic. They want to make an impact for society. And when you talk about entrepreneurship, they think about just making money. And so our message there is really there are different ways of creating impact. A spin-off is one way, but there are different ways. So through partnerships, we mentioned it before, licensing, patenting. And then it's also about helping them to find their role within that setup. So let's say it's a spin-off. So what role can the academic or the professor play in that setup, or what role should or she play in it? Who should be a founder? And really sort of educate them about what's really important to make innovation happen, and not just to leave it at an idea stage. A program that we have set up is the Bern Venture Fellowships, where we give where we support 4 young researchers with 100,000 Swiss francs each. So it basically covers most of their salary for the year, and it will allow them to work on their project for over a year, and really kind of drive it towards market readiness, or to create a proof of concept at least. And the idea there is that not that just that we give the money, but really that we follow them very closely. So we meet with them every 3-4 weeks, have very clear milestones. We connect them with potential investors or public funding bodies, and really have them to kick them out of the lab, right? So that's often the challenge, is that they like to be in their comfort zone. They like to be in the lab, and really make them leave the campus and talk to potential partners, customers, etc. So creating that mindset. And this is a really nice program because we also make sure that this is visible, and it creates, it inspires other academics, other young researchers, PhDs, to apply for it. And so we have seen certain labs where someone has received a venture fellowship, that the following years we will have more and more applicants from that lab as well. So it really has this snowball effect, which is really, really nice. But for those who do not have received this UniB Venture Fellowship, we also help, and any other researchers, in fact, to access public funding. So here in Switzerland, it's InnoSwiss and Bridge, 2 bodies that provide funding for innovation projects coming out of academia. And so there we work very closely with them on their proposals, on shaping those proposals, because like very often academics are used to submit proposals for basic research, but they do not think about business models, about who actually is the customer, how exactly will we translate that research into a commercial product. And so really, working with them closely there and help them to access that funding is one of the key sort of services that we offer, and we have seen already the impact that makes when you do have that knowledge. And then the third part, engage. So that's again, I think engaging and contributing to that local or even national ecosystems in Switzerland is in a way one single ecosystem, if you want, really kind of bridging those boundaries between the academic world and the outside world, if you want. So it's something that we are trying to push for. So one format is the Innovation at Breakfast. So basically industry meetings where we bring together industry representatives with researchers from very specific areas. This sounds very easy, but actually needs a lot of preparation. You need to make sure that you really bring together the right people. And it comes down to, quite funnily, the last time we had some people from physics department, it comes down to sending them the dress code for meeting with industry people, right? So how do you present to someone from industry what you're doing? On the student level, we also support student-run entrepreneurship initiatives. In fact, we have run 2 workshops with students to initiate the foundation of a student-led entrepreneurship club, because we think that this kind of clubs, associations are really important in the ecosystem. There was no club before. And so now we have around a board of 10 people from actually 2 schools. So it's the University of Bern and the University of Applied Sciences of Bern. So 2 different schools coming together, the students, and creating a joint student-led entrepreneurship club. And this is another sort of hotbed for ideas, for contacts. And then maybe just a third example, a very different kind of example is with the, there's a research center working on sustainability in tourism. And we actually have them brought together with the Association of the Bernese Mountain Cable Cars, because they actually are facing quite some challenges due to climate change and sort of the, you know, you can't go skiing as you could go skiing 20 years ago. So their business model has to change. And so we have a lot of expertise in university. And so sort of helping them there to manage this transformation is one way also how we as a university can create impact, not necessarily through technology, but through expertise. And so maybe in a couple of words, sort of what have you built or what have you learned from building up the innovation office? I think it starts with the same way you start a good startup is with the team. And I think I said it very clearly because we heard before it's all about relationships, right? And so hiring people who know how to communicate with academics, people who know how academia works, but also know how industry works. And in a way can function as a translator between those 2 worlds is really important. And so I was really lucky to have my 2 colleagues, Steffi and Elsa, someone coming from pharma, someone else coming from the physics discipline, and they know what it takes to sort of you know, change that mindset. And so I would also say that actually having a diverse team is a really important part. We have seen the difference that it makes when we have women in our team. We have seen more applications, let's say, for fundings coming from women. In the first year of the venture fellowship, for example, we had 1 female application out of 11. This year we had 6 female applications out of 14. So, and I think this is also partly because we have also a very diverse team. And so a second point is about creating those touch points where you meet people, you can build up a personal relationship, you can build up trust, and this can be through events, this can be through funding instruments. And I think this trustful relationship is really a key, especially in the beginning of an innovation office. And then, of course, funding always helps. When you make call for proposals, people suddenly come out of the institutes which you've never met before, and that is again another touch point where you can build up that relationship. And then one maybe last point. So besides the 2 advisors that I've hired, I have also hired a head of communication. And I think communication is really key. So whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on other platforms, website, because it really gives you this visibility. People sort of learn about the activities, and it might not be relevant today, but it might be relevant in 6 months or 12 months. And so sort of being visible is a really important part of building up a community. And so with that, actually, we always finish our presentation with this cup of coffee, because we say, you know, we love to drink coffee here in our innovation office, and we invite them to come and have a cup of coffee with us again. It's about relationship building. And so same for you. Whenever you're in Bern, please let me know, and we'll have some, I guess, some Nespresso coffee.
Thanks so much, Sébastien, for the invitation. I really like the insights that you shared on how to build this an innovation office at the university. Marc, any questions from you?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sebastian. And also thanks to Arno to answering the questions that people have been putting in the chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, Sebastian, I think you've got a good variety of different tools and incentives. Arno and I, in some of the events we've run recently, we see how cities or regions will launch a challenge and say, you know, young entrepreneurs, young startups, come and help us with your ideas. Have you had any sort of similar experience with you know, city of Bern, and saying, can we align the brains of our young and bright students with your challenges, whether it's cable cars, parking, whatever? Do you have any experience on that challenge-oriented approach?
So I know that there has been a data challenge by the city of Bern, but unfortunately it wasn't yet, I think, sufficiently connected with the university. So and I think that's something that we actually want to work on to better create that connection between this kind of type of activities and the university. I think the challenge for us is really to reach out, especially if we want to target students. It's like how do we reach them, and probably the best way is through social media, I guess Instagram, and that we don't have yet, but that's planning. And so once we have that, I hope that we can have more students being engaged in this type of activities. And in the past, there have been also those startup weekends, and that worked pretty well. So where over 2.5 days, basically, they were working on different challenges. My sense is that since Corona, people are less available, but I hope this will change again.
Well, we've got 82 people still listening to us, Sebastian.
Very good.
So I think we may not have done that pre-COVID, but yeah, no, I think you're right to highlight the different communication channels you need for professors, researchers, students, citizens, etc. So I think that's an important dimension.
All right. Thanks, Marc. Thanks, Sébastien. Stay with us for the panel discussion. We move on to the University of Tartu, and we are going to look at the spin-off program that you developed there. Triinu, the floor is yours, and you have 8 minutes as well.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm trying to share my screen. I hope you will see it.
Yes, we can see it now. Not full screen. Yes, perfect.
It's good. I think I skipped already. Yes, so hi everybody. I am the pre-incubation lead in Tartu University in the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And I'm happy also to show you one of the KPIs that was kind of in Arnault's slide before already. As in our strategic plan for the 5 years, besides teaching and besides research, has also been to be the accelerator of smart economy. And recently, our Minister of Economy and Communication told us that our aim in Estonia is to reach the number of deep tech startups up to 500 by 2030. At the moment, the count is at 150, so we do have a lot of work to do. And that is what we are doing in the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is a support unit in Tartu University, and we are working with all the faculties we have. And there are basically 3 main focus areas that we have. One is IP management, where my knowledge transfer colleagues are working with patenting. Then industrial collaboration, which means R&D collaboration and also licensing. And the third pillar is business creation, where then I'm basically engaged in. So the program, what we call is Science to Business, and for whom it is meant? It is meant for university members, researchers, PhDs, master students who either have formed a team or not yet have formed a team, but they want to learn more about how and if to commercialize their idea. And what we call a spin-off company is not necessarily the company who is using intellectual property, but actually who is creating their company on the knowledge gained in the university. And now coming to the slide that explains also how it started and when it started and where we are now. So actually, the very first 3 spin-off agreements were concluded already in 1998. And one interesting fact is that our current president of Estonia, Mr. Ruiz, was one of the founders of the first spin-off company in Tartu University. By the count of last year, we actually have up to 70 spin-off companies, which means average 3 companies per year. Of course, it's the average because sometimes there is 1, sometimes there is 5. But in the recent years, the average has been 3 to 5 spin-off companies a year. Provided that the university has only 14,000 students and there is only 1.3 million Estonians, then this is, I think, not too bad a number. So in 2019, the University of Tartu formed a proof of concept of feasibility fund. And it has been now going on for 5 years, and we have provided, it's only the university money, given to about 60 projects, 2 million euros, between 20 to 50,000 euros for year, in order to rise this technology readiness level from 2.3 to 4.5, 6. And because this fund was created, then also a year later, we thought that we need to reopen again this spin-off program or spin-off focus in a more programmable way. So the program itself has been going on now in the same format. It lasts for 2 months, every Wednesday. 2-3 hours, one Wednesday evening, where basically we cover all the main startup spin-off topics related more to deep tech, starting from product development, market validation, business model, but of course very important for us is the intellectual property, the commercialization options, founders agreement, legal issues, and last but not least, pitching. And once they go through with this program for 2 months, then they have the option to continue to be in our focus area for the next years, when they develop their research, hopefully into a commercialization sizable way, either to patent or they can spin out with their knowledge. We are also started to evaluate our spin-offs based on the Stockholm KTH innovation readiness model, which evaluates in 6 different topics the development of a research team or a spin-off. If you're interested, I can also share a link later in the chat. Because this helps when they go out from the university and from our program, for example, to science parks or to other incubators, then this same kind of evaluation level helps to evaluate their progress also outside the university. So we are planning to use this not only in University of Tartu, but in our Estonian startup ecosystem as well. We also I think it was mentioned already before, this entrepreneurial residence program, which resembles kind of, we take the expert who is either a CEO, has been a CEO, or sales guru, or in certain field, and we put them into a research team actually to work for and work with the research team. So we piloted this last year, and this year we are engaging already double the teams, so four teams are working with 4 different experts, because this is all we need to speed the birth of deep tech companies. So this is how we try to do it. And of course, another thing I want to mention here definitely is that in 2020, Tartu University was the first university in Estonia who created a holding company, Unitartu Ventures, who is taking IP against equity. And now, after these 2-3 years of development, we would like to build this not only from Tartu University holding company, but Univentures as a holding company for all the bigger universities in Estonia. And these are some examples of our spin-off companies who have popped out or spinned out from our relaunch program. So there are from production of carbon nanomaterials and graphite to lidar systems and to cancer immunology treatment. So very different kind. And with that, I end my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer to your questions either now or later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Triinu, for your great presentation on spin-off program in Tartu. Marc, any questions from you?
It's a rather irrelevant and flippant question, but given the target that's been set for you, Triinu, on deep tech, what do you do with the rest of the startup community, which I guess would be the majority of projects? Do you have a sort of prioritization scheme, because deep tech is?
I can explain the way that the startup, I mean, Estonia are very rich in startups. We have 10 or even 11 unicorns, and the more unicorns per capita in the world. So the startup has been there for the past 20 years since we became independent, because there have been kind of 3 waves of startups. First, in the beginning of 90s, where the applied research was taken out of the university without many regulations, the startups were created. Then came the digital area. So we are a digitalized country where the startups popped up. But now we are talking more about the deep tech. So that's why I'm saying spin-offs or startups. Yeah, it's a third wave kind of.
Okay. I think indeed, I mean, the European Commission in their new, innovation priorities talk a lot about the deep tech. And so my follow-up question, then I'll stop, Arno, is the skills necessary in the pool of the universities and the research institutes. Is that sufficient, or do you have to accelerate that training in line with your ambitions for the 500 deep tech companies?
Yes, we do have to change or educate the mindset first and foremost, and of course not. I mean, I could go on for ages, but not all researchers will be businessmen. Definitely not. And maybe only 1% of these researchers we have are superhuman, who can do everything, guide people, do research, and do business. So we need maybe the biggest problem we have is to find the team, the right people in the team around the creator or the researcher. So, and this needs educating in every step, starting from the bachelor's up to the PhD students, definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Triinu.
Thank you so much, Triinu. And we have a new Interreg Europe project called Deep Tech Valley that can be interested to you. Let's move on to Zaragoza, University of Zaragoza. The floor is yours, Cristina, and you have 8 minutes as well for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Arnaud. I'm sharing my presentation. Okay, can you see it full screen?
And we can see it full screen, yes, it's good.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I'm happy to be here to share our experience in the VIADUCT project, which was approved in the first call of Interreg Europe. The objective of the project is to drive knowledge transfer and commercialization of public applied research, particularly in regional smart specialization strategies priorities, by tackling the main barriers related to spin-off creation and consolidation. To this end, we designed it and are implemented a learning process through which we dedicate one complete semester to identify and exchange good practices on these specific topics, which are the promotion of the entrepreneurial culture among researchers, some methodologies to identify and valorize research results, initiatives aimed at reinforcing business development and management skills of researchers, how to navigate through the complex legal framework, how to access to funds, and some measures to create and consolidate your own spin-offs. All these 6 topics correspond to 6 barriers that are actually preventing spin-offs from being created. And by following this learning process, our objective is to implement new methods learned from others that will ease this path in our regions. We are 8 project partners from 8 different regions across Europe. And after this short introduction of our project, I'm here to show 3 good practices that have been already identified in our project that are different examples of initiatives that aim to valorize and exploit research results. First good practice emerged at University of Zaragoza in a context of limited resources available to identify and valorize research results. For this reason, it was decided to implement a methodology that allows us not only to undertake the common patentability report in order to assess that if a research result is patentable or not, but also to conduct in parallel a strategic evaluation of the invention. With this strategic evaluation of the invention, we assess the results from 2 different perspectives. The technical perspective, which gives us information on how ready is the result to be transferred to the market, and also from the market point of view, which gives us also information on the potential industrial demand that the result would have. The strategic evaluation consists of a 24-question survey in which responses can just take 2 values. 0, which means unexisting or not, or 1, which means existing or yes. The questions assess the results from multiple aspects, such as budget and term foreseen until the result is completely ready to be transferred, technological milestones that have been already achieved, the personal skills, motivation, and resources of the researcher teams, the patentability options, and finally, the market access, if there are some barriers maybe, the potential industrial demand, and the competitors they will need to face. So the total sum of the variables, considering that not every variable have the same impact, is what is called the transfer potential index, which serves us as an objective indicator to measure the potential of the result to be transferred. And once this index is obtained, the valorization technicians are able to assess the research team and to decide whether it's worth to go to the market or if it's better to continue improving the results until it's more ready to be transferred. To move on, I will show 2 other good practices who are owned by our partners in Connectus in France. They are also here with me in case you have questions later on, they are on the chat. So coming back to the good practices, in this case, the aim is to identify research results with potential to be transferred directly in the lab, but being an integrated part of the lab team. What they do is to have a dedicated staff called detection officers that do weekly lab presences, so that the mutual relationship between the detection officers and the researcher teams is ensured. And being that close to the research team makes very easier to identify the research results potentially transferable, as well as guiding the research team through the process. This approach also allows them to organize from time to time some educational event on topics of interest for all the researchers that are under this path. The job is done by Connectus together with a university cluster called PUE-LSAS, which aim to increase the innovation and socioeconomic contacts in university. This cluster contributes with a specific funding to recruit some detection officers. And just to show a little bit the impact of this initiative, only in 2022, this methodology entailed the 30% of the total of Connectus detection by a total of 24 detection. And the last initiatives I'm going to show you today is a program specifically addressed to 2nd and 3rd year PhD students, that in order to help them to exploit the economic potential of their thesis by generating new products, services, or processes that can be brought to the market. These initiatives emerge in a context in which only 20% of PhD graduates find work in academia. And the objective of the good practice is to make them aware of the tech transfer processes and to increase their business capacities by learning entrepreneurial and business skills. The process consists in a promotion campaign followed by an application process. And then there are a short list of applications, and the final selection is made by a jury through a 30-minute speech of the candidates. Then the winners of the final selection enter in a process of experts accompaniment that will teach them how to conduct a market analysis, carry on some training on entrepreneurship, IP, and etc. Also, they are able to access funding under some conditions in order to pursue their postdoc or maybe undertake a proof of concept of their research. Potentially, they are also able to contact with companies and investors. And as remarkable results of the initiative, at least 2 spin-offs have emerged from this initiative up to now, and it is also a precursor initiative at the national level. And I would like to end my presentation by summarizing some policy recommendations that we strongly believe that will improve spin-off creation processes and will ease their path. First of all would be to design regional strategies that will enable effective knowledge transfer from public institutions. Also to increase the capacities and resources available for these institutions for a more effective and targeted promotion of entrepreneurship. To establish mechanisms that will allow research valorization and ensure that institutions have also enough resources to accomplish this task. To facilitate researchers' participation in entrepreneurship activities, to work towards making the legal framework more conducive to enroll in entrepreneurial venture and to make entrepreneurship more attractive for researchers, to leverage investment in spin-offs and setting up regional financial support schemes, and finally, to provide innovative tools to support the growth and scale of spin-offs. Thank you for your attention. In case you would like to stay tuned to our project, this is our project website when you will find these good practices in more detail, also some others we have already identified, and also some news and events we are already organizing in our project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristina. Indeed, we recommend you to have a look at the good practices from VIADUCT because they are dealing with research valorization. So very interesting for this webinar, and they have been also featured in our policy brief on research valorization as well. Marc, any questions to Cristina before we move on to panel discussion?
Yeah, just a quick one, Cristina. And you or one of your partners, as you said, connectors or are online with us. The point 3, you talked about the resource challenge for this type of activity. And that's a question really is, to what extent does the incomes that maybe come from some of the funding initiatives, are you able to recycle into covering the costs of running programs and supporting, the entrepreneurship training of PhDs? Are there opportunities to use the incomes that come from startups or spin-outs to fund the program, or is it 2 separate funding streams?
Do you mean specifically in these good practices in this initiative?
Yeah, I mean the obvious example. Does it have a ability to use the money that it's generating to fund its activities?
Okay, in this case, okay. I see that my colleague Antoine is answering in the chat because, as I've mentioned, it's a good practice is owned by our partners. So of course, he will explain much better than me.
Well, Antoine, thanks for putting something in the chat.
Okay.
Unless I don't know if we can't open the microphones for everybody, but yeah, if you could give us some insights, because I think it's one of the challenges. There is a cost we saw from Sébastien. Running that team. What is the business model? Where do you get your resources to sort of run the team? Is there a direct link between the incomes that might come in and the activities you need to run. Okay. Thanks,
right.
Cristina, for your presentation.
Oh, thank you for
Thanks.
inviting us.
Thanks so much, Cristina. I think we can move on to panel discussion, Marc, and I give you the floor. You have many questions to our speakers. And please, participants, use the chat at any point if you want to ask questions to our panel as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks to everybody. So this last session is one question, and you can all answer it in turn, or you can, the best person can answer it. But I think in all your presentations, we've seen the importance of either accelerating or developing the innovation culture or the entrepreneurship culture. And it's a key, let's say, stimulus. And we just saw it recently in Cristina's slides for PhDs. But I was wondering if there are, in your 4 presentations, your organizations, some good examples where the entrepreneurship training is done at a sort of a early stage and not waiting for PhD. So it can be 6 years into your studies, 7 years into your studies. So do you have a sort of any insights into the entrepreneurship training that students can get in their first years in a university context? On the screen, I see, Triinu, you're nodding your head. Maybe you can start to give us some feedback, and then we'll work through.
Yes, as we have the Faculty of Economics here on the same floor in our house, and also the chair of entrepreneurship studies as well. But what I wanted to talk about was this startup lab. It's also it was funded by European project. It lasted for 7 past years, and it ended last year. And this startup lab was held in the bigger universities, or funded in the bigger universities, including TalTech and the Tartu University, for example, and Tallinn University, were gathered twice a year, the same system as I explained to the Spinoff program, also the students. But they came together and they formed an idea, like in a team or like in a hackathon way. And out of these 14 sessions that they've had across the years, many companies have come up. And also from Tartu University, starting from this startup lab, from the bachelor students, then later they have entered, for example, our program. So that's the kind of the education from the very bachelor thing. And we are just discussing here that they were talking about intellectual property, and you should discuss it with PhDs. No, you should discuss already the topic to the bachelors, so that they know what it's about, and it doesn't come as a surprise before you end your studies. So
we often see those type of programs, Triinu, that also bring together someone with a scientific background and someone with a more business school or even a literary background, to try and clash the two cultures from an early stage to get 2 different perspectives. But no, it's good to see it's at the bachelor level. Arno, in your perspective at UIN?
I was writing an answer in the chat. I think if we start teaching students about entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial mindset when they enter university, I think we're around about 12 years too late. We should start way earlier. We see really great initiatives across Europe, actually. If just to drop a few names, he's officially, I have to check. I think he's officially retired, but he's still really active. Andy Penaluna out in Wales in the United Kingdom, or Bantani Education in Belgium, being very active in that field. There's a few projects. I think there's a YETI project, Young Entrepreneurial Teachers Initiatives, which really focuses on this primary school, so a first stage education kind of level, teaching an entrepreneurial mindset. I think generally my perspective on this is that the vast majority, let's not put numbers on it, the vast majority of universities across Europe will by now have an entrepreneurial program, an entrepreneurship program. They might have a bachelor or master's degree in entrepreneurship. I don't know if that's how useful that is. I really like the more recent initiatives around embedding entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking and this market and innovation kind of approach in already existing degree programs. There's a few around now. And not to exclude any others, but the first one that now comes to my mind, top of my head, is the Science and Business and Innovation SBI program at the VU University here in Amsterdam. But there's many other excellent programs like that. Aalto University as a premise is entirely built around that analogy of merging engineering, design, and the business school, bringing the different disciplines together, more along what you were just saying, Marc, about bringing these different perspectives together. I think that can be really useful. And then if you want to do that, there's quite a few of these like innovation lab, challenge-based education types of programs. Sorry, I'm really not doing this because I'm Dutch. These are just the first ones that come to my mind. But then the one that does come to my mind is the TU Eindhoven and their innovation. I think it's called Innovation Lab, where they take societal or industry challenges and they throw them over into a prototype or a makerspace. Oh, actually, then not Dutch. The TU Munich has a great one as well at that Unternehmertum. Although it helps if you get a few $100 million from the BMW family to get your initiative started, but you can do this on a smaller scale just as well and without their money. But I think these kinds of approaches are really relevant. However, and then I'll hand over to one of the others, but for me, that's no longer necessarily the issue. I think the mindset and all of this we can all do quite well. I think where at the moment the bottleneck mainly is this transition from the safe incubant space of a university, the warm fuzzy feeling the university gives, into the real world where the university, the startup actually needs to be able to go from crawling to walking and then running. And I think this transition is one of the main bottlenecks in Europe due to lack of venture capital funding, which we're overcoming at the moment. There's a lot of governments that are spending a ton of money in this area, but there is still this. And then the absorption capacity of external stakeholders, of accelerators. And I think then one of the issues we have on the other end as part of that is that fixation. For some reason, people get really fixated on these quantitative indicators. We need to get this deep tech initiative from EIT, which, by the way, I think is really good initiative, but don't always feel the need to put a number on it. Don't say we need X hundred thousands of talent, or don't say we need 100 startups. If you tell me to create 100 startups and you reward me by doing that, I will take 100 people. I will walk over to the Chamber of Commerce and I'll give them each 50 euros and we'll all register a startup and I would have achieved my indicator. So I think we need to focus more on quality as well rather than just quantity.
Well, thanks for those insights, Arno. And I indeed, and that was going to be one of my next questions. And I don't want to use the term valley of death, but we know it's often a shortcut for the financial dimension. But yeah, interesting. We're 12 years too late when you start teaching our young people to be an entrepreneur. But we'll come back to some of those issues. Sébastien, in your university, you mentioned a couple of examples of this entrepreneurship being taught. Any follow-up remarks to what Triinu and Arno have just said?
I think a lot has been said, and I think we're trying to work on all different kind of areas. So here in Switzerland, we have, I mentioned it, InnoSwiss, which is the innovation agency, national innovation agency. And so they actually provide a program of funding where in most Swiss universities, we can offer entrepreneurship training for free. There are no ECTS points for it. So it's over 14 weeks, 4 hours in the evenings. And that actually is a very nice program because it brings together students from different faculties, which otherwise, at least in our university, is quite difficult to have those interfaculty collaborations. I would just add maybe something that works really well as well are those student-run entrepreneurship clubs. I think in a way they can be entrepreneurs themselves, right? So we are trying to support those kind of again, students who had the idea and initiative to contact Novartis and Roche and ask them for challenges. And so we really try to encourage and and supported that. And actually out of this idea, they now create an association, included other universities. And so a very nice initiative. And it fosters entrepreneurship, not just in the social sciences, but also in the life science and other departments. So, you know, those initiatives supporting is really important as well, I think.
And Cristina, from the sort of early stages of VIADUCT, have you dealt with this issue in any particular regions, the part of the project partnership?
Well, to be honest, the VIADUCT is more focused on researchers since they are focusing on creating spin-offs, but I can share with you some initiatives that are being developed at UNIZAR, at our university, specifically addressing students that wanted to learn on entrepreneurship. First initiative would be an ideathon, 44 hours on an entrepreneur's shoes. It took place really last weekend, so it's quite recent. And the objective of the ideathon is to bring together teams of multidisciplinary students in order to work during the weekend to solve a challenge of a real startup of our university. And the challenge is normally to create a new business line suitable for this startup. So it's an immersive experience on entrepreneurship that really allows them to know entrepreneurial tour and to go on the entrepreneurial journey. So it's quite nice. And also we are kind of testing another initiative that consists in joining students who are curious about entrepreneurship to work with researchers on developing their business idea. So we have a training program addressing researchers that want to create their spin-offs, and what we do is including on the research team some students to work on these real projects, and at the same time they learn the entrepreneurial path also.
Okay, thanks, Cristina. I mean, I think all answers have also pointed to the fact you can't just deal with it in one location, in one classroom, in being connected to your regional ecosystem, either for the cross or interdisciplinary dimension, accessing funding, as Sébastien said, with Swiss, or linking to challenges to make sure they are market, or at least market relevant, if not tested. So I think the focus of a university behind its ivory towers used to be the definition we used to get from a university. It's definitely out of date, and connecting with the ecosystem your region is important. There's some interesting discussion in the chat. Someone's asked a question, I think Christine Clever, you talked about social economy. One of the speakers perhaps can react to that. I've got one last question before Arnaud cuts us all off. The dimension of KPIs, Arno, you mentioned it, sometimes they're not particularly relevant. Unfortunately, funders often need them to guide the process, and some of them can be build a building for an incubator. Some can be number of students that go through the process. But I'll ask one. This is the last question to all of you. If there's one KPI you'd want to give yourself to demonstrate that you're on the right track for dealing with these issues of we've been talking about valorisation. It's a free hit, because it will give an idea of your particular priority. In no particular order, you can raise your hand, and if you think what would be a good KPI to sort of go in to see the president of your university or the president of your regional government and say, look, this is something we could really deliver on. Is there something that you would like to share with us? Who wants to launch themselves into this?
Well, I can start. I mean, for me, it's kind of easy when I think, because the quantity of the spin-offs we create through our program or in our university. But another touch to it is to find a patent that is so licensable and so spin-offable that it will bring us millions, like the one we've had in 20 years ago. So maybe that's one. So it's quality over quantity, but also quantity.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. There's no point having a good idea if everybody can then copy it and someone else makes the return on the investment, as we saw. And thanks, Antoine, for answering the question in the chat about the program in the east of France. Yeah, you've got to have some income streams no matter where they come from. Okay, Arnaud, Sébastien, what are your takes on some KPIs?
We just did that exercise, and I'm not sure we're finished yet. And I think there's not one KPI. I mean, we're looking at different things in terms of outreach, in terms of outcomes. Obviously, the number of startups is something we have to track. I think something that we also look at. And so by startups, I don't mean only incorporated, but it could also be associations. It could be also sort of more like social innovation types of partnerships. One thing that we're trying to track is also how much money they raise. So it's one indicator of at least how well they started as a startup. But I don't think there's one indicator, but you need sort of like a bunch of different metrics.
Yeah, I know there's not one indicator, but there can be a driving one. But Cristina or Arnaud? Yeah.
Cristina?
Yeah, okay. Of course, I totally agree with the KPIs you are saying. Of course, quality is quite important also, but I will also, to add anything new, remark the importance of business project that, although maybe they're not create a new spin-off because they are transferred following some other methodologies or some other ways, they are also important and very remarkable. The capacity of our researchers to create new ideas that could be potentially business, because it's not always easy to bridge this gap on knowledge to separate the academic researcher and the business world. So simply the fact that there are researchers thinking on how they could exploit the researchers with the business, it's also a good KPI for us.
Okay. Thank you, Cristina.
Yeah, Marc, yeah, I'll answer your question at the end of what I'm going to say first, which is agreeing with Sébastien on there's not just, I think we're just one magical KPI, first of all. I know that's not your question, Marc, but also that doesn't really exist. And what we often tend to do, and also what you can now hear from the answers, is when it comes to our KPIs, we tend to focus on the outputs, the tangibles. And we see the tangibles maybe as a synonym or something that should, as a representative of the actual impact that we're looking to achieve. And in most cases in some cases that may work, but actually what we see in most cases is that the KPIs steer us into this wrong direction. And I guess that's where my little silly joke before came from about going to the Chamber of Commerce, that if you steer someone into that direction, you get what you measure, right? So that's where we need to be. I think we need to be really careful with KPIs. And we have a program that we run with universities. It's called Pathway to Impact. And we work with universities. We've done this with universities now across 4 continents, and we work with them on building an impact measurement framework for their institution. We apply the logic model: input, output, outcomes, impact. And the most challenging thing is actually to identify these. The one thing is the KPIs, but then also what you can actually measure and capture, and what is feasible. And that's why we tend to focus on startups, number of startups, or revenue, or these kinds of aspects. But it will be far more interesting if we first start with not with what we can measure, but start with the question about what do we actually want to achieve as an institution? Coming back to the question of the 2 of you asked me just after my presentation. Actually, Marc, sorry, I believe it was you, around the difference between a University of Applied Sciences and an excellent university, and if they should be doing the same types of activities. In the end, that's the first question we should ask ourselves. What is it that we as an institution want to do? What is it that we're looking to achieve? And then align our potential indicators to those types of activities. But if you'd ask me what is the best indicator, I don't know, happiness of our citizens in the region, maybe. That would be my indicator, not the number of startups. The startups are just a symbol for that. They're the vehicle. Maybe their happiness, their health, their well-being, there's all these different kinds of words that we could use and that we can also actually capture. But we tend to go towards the monetary side of things because, I don't know, that's just how we're geared, I guess, and how we operate.
You'll make a great politician, Arnaud. That's right. But I knew if I said indicators plural, Arnaud would shoot me because he wants to we have a limited time. But it was interesting, all of your perspectives. And I think the university does indeed have a broader perspective and mandate, whether it's societal because of the different topics and the different challenges. But
all right,
Arnaud,
time to close.
Arnaud.
Time to close.
Merci.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Thank you,
Marc.
everybody.
I know you wanted to continue the discussion, but we have to end this webinar. Thanks so much for this great webinar, speakers. Thanks, Arnaud, Sébastien, Triinu, and Cristina for being here with us this afternoon. Thanks to all the participants and for sharing all your questions as well. There will be a survey popping up, so tell us what you thought about this webinar, but most importantly, tell us what type of topics you would like us to cover in future webinars. And we will write, of course, follow-up articles with all the key insights and all the presentations from the speakers. So we keep in touch. Thanks so much again. Have a great afternoon, and hope to see you soon in future PLP Policy Learning Platform events.
Thanks, Arnaud, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.